NASCAR's inconsistency has been revealed yet again with the latest penalty deduction, and the fact that they've chosen to suspend team members for 4 races for a banal incident is something that doesn't sit right with the community. On top of that, they've given Bubba Wallace, the 2311 racing driver for number 45, just 1 race ban for a deliberate incident he caused with Larson kicking out another driver as collateral damage too. This is something that not many people can comprehend, and we are going to talk about it in this video. So, as you already know, there have been 2 incidents in the NASCAR community recently, and both of them were of a similar nature. Bubba Wallace has blatantly crashed his car into Kyle Larson's after the latter managed to complete an overtake by pushing and pinching Wallace to the wall. According to all the rules, this is something that happens very often and is literally a practice when it comes to overtaking, so Wallace had no right to react the way he did. Instead of attempting to calm down and reclaim his position, the 2311 racing driver pursued Larson, deliberately crashed into the back of the car, and caused a commotion that forced Christopher Bell, a legitimate championship contender, out of the race. On top of that, Wallace went on and directly confronted Larson, pushing and shoving him while interacting verbally with him. If it hadn't been for the NASCAR officials, rest assured that fists would have landed from Wallace's side to Larson, who was completely innocent in this whole situation. 2311 Racing condemned the crash immediately, as they released a statement in which they said they spoke with Wallace and told him that actions like that are something the team doesn't stand behind. Wallace went on Twitter to issue an apology to Larson and his team for his actions, and NASCAR has suspended him with only 1 race ban. Let's go to the other side and analyze the accident that happened with Joe Gibbs Racing, more precisely with Kyle Busch. At the Las Vegas Motorsports Speedway, Kyle Busch's number 18 car, a Toyota Camry, has been released unsafely onto the track. More precisely, Busch's team has committed a breach of sections 8.8, 10.4, and 10.5 2.6 in the NASCAR rulebook. These sections say that a team must be penalized for the loss or separation of an improperly installed tire or wheel from the vehicle, which is exactly what happened with Busch's car at the Las Vegas Motorsports Speedway. The incident took place on lap 229 when Busch went in for fresh tires along with the rest of the field after a caution. After exiting the pit road, the left front wheel was loose as it rolled off the car on the backstretch. Busch, however, was able to fix the issue and cross the finish line at P3 in front of his home crowd. The suspensions will carry through the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum, the February 5, 2023 exhibition event ahead of next year's Daytona 500. But what was the penalty that NASCAR issued to Busch's team? As he wrote, Bob Pockrass spoke about this issue on Twitter, explaining the official verdict to Joe Gibbs Racing. Also, as expected, Kyle Busch crew chief Ben Bayshore and Jackman Darrell Edwards and tire changer Michael Hicks have been suspended from the next 4 events. Through the Clash, pit crew members didn't do Clash last year, but that would count, for wheel coming off at Vegas. Las Vegas Motorsports Speedway marked Busch's last race with his crew chief, Ben Bayshore, as he is moving from Joe Gibbs Racing at the end of the season to Richard Childress Racing for the 2023 season. Joe Gibbs Racing has yet to announce a replacement for the number 18 car, as they confirmed that they won't be appealing the penalty given to them. Bayshore's role will be fulfilled by Seth Chafka, who was his interim crew for this year's exhibition race. So what is the huge issue here? The NASCAR community is far away from happy when it comes to interpreting penalties and giving them to teams. According to many fans, it's very hard to understand how a deliberate action, something that Wallace did, is going to be penalized very slightly compared to something that wasn't deliberately done and didn't hurt anyone at the end of the day. Joe Gibbs Racing's penalty marked the 13th time in the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series season when a team has been suspended due to tire loss issues in the next-gen car. But after Wallace's penalty being announced and being just 1 race ban, the NASCAR fans cannot rest easy. For one, Kyle Petty feels like the penalties given to both teams are a shame to the sport, and the NASCAR community needs to do a better job when it comes to crashes like the Wallace one. When talking about this matter, Petty said, "It's okay to spin a guy and knock him in the wall and you only get 1. The optics of that for NASCAR are not good. They're just not good. They didn't leave that wheel off intentionally. They didn't. What he did was intentional. He can say the steering broke, but he never lifted off the accelerator at the same time he drove back down the racetrack. This was an unprofessional move." What Petty is trying to say, and what many NASCAR fans feel the same way about, is that NASCAR is punishing deliberate actions less strictly than they are punishing non-deliberate actions, like the wheel spinning off the car. Nobody is saying that Joe Gibbs shouldn't be punished, and although the punishment may be a bit harsh, it should be there. But if you compare Busch's accident with Wallace's outburst, pushing and shoving a guy that was literally at no fault of his own, you can see that NASCAR is becoming a little bit hypocritical when it comes to giving out penalties to teams. Kyle Petty also spoke about the penalties that were given to both sides, Busch and Wallace, as he elaborated. What we saw out of Kyle Larson was a champion and a professional reaction to the situation. The way he backed away from Bubba and the things he had to say. What bothered me is, I have driven race cars, and to get hooked in the right rear, it is so freaking intentional. You have no recourse, no chance to recover. At that point in time, Kyle Larson is along for the ride. The way the car spun, the way it hit Christopher Bell's car, it goes driver's side in. You've seen Kurt Busch and we've seen Alex Bowman. They backed in and they're not here right now. They're not driving because of concussion. This could have been the season-ending, if not a career-ending accident for him. There are other things that are bothering everyone in this case, and just like Petty said, we had a very serious accident with Kurt Busch as he still isn't able to recover 100% and to race yet again, although that is something he would literally kill to do. The fact that Wallace was on the verge of committing the same thing to not one but two drivers at the same time is something that needs to be punished much more strictly than it was this time, with just a one-race ban. Also, Wallace has a history of outbursts. This isn't the first time that he has been involved in controversy, and that surely is something that NASCAR has to keep in mind when it comes to giving out penalties to this driver. The apology itself isn't enough. The actions on the track are what matter the most, and we've seen the most unsportsmanlike actions from a driver in a long time. Had it not been for the NASCAR officials, Larson's calmness wouldn't have saved him from what was coming from Wallace. That kind of driver is a liability for both the team and the sport, and it needs to be addressed properly. NASCAR doesn't need these types of controversies, especially after multiple drivers have complained about the safety of the next-gen cars and the accidents that almost killed Kurt Busch. Of course, it wasn't NASCAR's fault that they happened, but many people believe that the safety of next-gen cars is the main reason Busch sustained all of that damage. With that being said, NASCAR does need to take more action and to be more responsible for its own actions. One race ban after deliberately crashing into his opponent out of pettiness, just like in a video game, and taking out another driver who is in the championship fight is something that deserves far more than a one race ban. On the other hand, you have an incident that didn't hurt anyone and was penalized with a 4-race ban for multiple team members. What do you think about NASCAR's penalties? Let us know in the comments below.